Hello and welcome to the Voter Identification Project on gotvtools.com. Today we're going to be talking about how you as a volunteer can use the survey entry tool to save time, paper, and frustration when you're making voter identification calls. So let's jump into it right over at gotvtools.com. The first thing you're likely to notice when you get here is a listing of counties down the middle. This was actually created as a multi-county setup so that we can loan it out to other counties besides Eaton, who it was created for. But today we're going to be using a county called Demo. And this is just an account we can play around with and mess with, and it's not got any data that we're going to try to save. So I'm just going to click on that, and you would click on the county name of yours. In my case, it would be Eaton County that I'd normally click on. But right now we're going to log into the demo tool. So if you feel like you want to play around with this a little bit, you can also request a username for the demo access, and I can get you that as well. One of the things that you're going to need to do first before you can log in is request a username. So you can send an email to webmaster@gotvtools.com, and that comes to me. And so I personally, right now anyway, I personally issue all of the usernames for this website. So I'm also going to need from you a note from your VIP county chair authorizing you. I'm the VIP county chair for Eaton, so if you're from Eaton, basically I just need to know who you are. If you're on the precinct delegate list, or if you're a executive member, just tell me how you heard about it, and your name will already be on the list. You won't have to prove who you are. So otherwise, if I don't know who you are, I probably need a recommendation from somebody, which shouldn't be that hard to get. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. I have my username and password all set up. And when you click the login button, it's going to take you to the preferences page. Now, right now we only have one preference, and this is which precinct you want to work on. So you're probably going to get assigned a precinct to work on, because some precincts might be assigned to people who want to work on paper. Otherwise, if you have nobody that's doing paper surveys, you can just click random precinct and it'll work through the whole list. But for today we're going to work on Bellevue Township Precinct 2. So we're going to just go ahead and click on that, and from the drop down list, and then click on Get Started. Now this takes us to the survey entry tool. And the first item in the list here is going to be the voter information. So you can look at them, see where they live, see what their name is, and then you need to make the phone call. And you just dial this number right here. The nice thing about having a web-based tool rather than having a sheaf of paper surveys or something like that, and trying to get together and have a party doing voter identification calls, is you can do this from home where you have probably better phone connection. In my case, I have a telephone here at home with free long distance and unlimited calling, so it's much more economical for me to call from my home phone than it is from my cell phone. So this is a benefit of having a web application, is you can just call straight from home. If there are more than one voter behind this phone number, this happens actually pretty frequently, so we'll see probably at least one of those today. You'll have two or more unidentified voters living in a house behind the same phone number, and they'll show up here. It'll say Lori Shannon and, for example, John Shannon might be two unidentified voters that we need to ID. And if that's the case, it's going to get a little bit more interesting down here in the actual survey. So when you get the phone number connected, you can go ahead and read through this survey, and it's not a static survey. It will actually change based on the information there. So, hello, my name is Jonathan Potter. This gets updated from your profile. I am a volunteer calling on behalf of the Demo County Republicans. Now this, every time you see the word demo here in the survey, that's actually going to be changed to your county name. So up here, it's going to say Demo County Republican Party. That would in my case be Eaton County Republican Party. And you'll notice it has the Eaton County logo up here for the Demo County. They're the sponsors of this project. And down here it would read, I'm calling on behalf of the Eaton County Republicans. This next sentence also gets modified based on how many voters are there. So in this case there's just one, so it would read, is Lori Shannon available? But if John Shannon was also unidentified at this address, it would read, is Lori Shannon or John Shannon available? And then you're probably going to have a pause right here after that sentence while you figure out who you're talking to, who you can talk to, if either of those are available. And if so, if you get connected to one of those people that you need to talk to, in this case Lori Shannon, so she says, yeah, I'm Lori. You say, we're calling to ask you a few questions about important issues facing the state of Michigan. Do you have a few minutes to answer a couple of questions? And if she says yes, then you can go ahead and fill out the survey. Now if she also says no, there's some things you can do to fill out the survey too. So you'd select from this drop-down list. In this case it's just Lori Shannon because there's only one there. In the case where you've got more than one voter at this phone number, we are going to try to talk to all the voters on a single phone call. So when you're done with your survey with Lori, you would want to ask, is John Shannon available also? And then you'd loop right back up to here. And when John would get on the phone, you'd say, we're calling to ask you a few questions about important issues facing the state of Michigan. And this will actually, when you've submitted the form, it'll actually update to have John's name in there and not Lori's. So in this case, we're going to skip over this quick submit stuff and go down to additional response. Now this is not a question that the voter would answer. This is something that you figure out based on whether you get them to talk to you or not. Down here, let's start at the bottom. Bad number. This is when you get those, the call has been disconnected, the number can't go through. You know, double check that you typed it in right. If that still doesn't work, then you're just going to have to mark it as a bad number. And that gets put in the system, and that number never gets called again. Now, not interested, this is if they say, please put me on your do not call list, we're not interested right now. Usually I mark people who hang up on you as not interested. That's a pretty good sign that they don't want to talk to you. That also marks them as, puts them in the system as don't call me again. And that works across the whole phone number. So if there's 5 voters at this address or at this phone number, none of them will get called again. The next one is no answer. So this is like if you get a busy signal, or it just rings and rings and rings, or if you get a voicemail. So that one marks them as, all the voters, as call again later. So it takes about 2 days for the system to recycle them, so they won't get called again in 15 minutes or something, which is a good thing. Not available is for each individual voter. So if you get there on the phone and you get to talking to somebody and they say, I'm sorry, we're not available right now. So you'd mark them as not available. And the way you do that, if you have multiple voters who are all not available, you have to resubmit it multiple times. But it also gives you the option of skipping through and doing just a few voters from each spot. Completed survey is what we really want. You should just mark it as completed survey, and then you can go ahead and finish answering your questions. Now, you'll notice that a lot of, as you make phone calls, at least this was the case when we were doing it and testing this system, a lot of people will be not available, they won't answer their phone, they'll not be interested, or the number won't go through. So when you do mark these, you don't have to mark anything else on the rest of the survey. So let's say there was no answer at Lori's number. You'd normally have to scroll all the way to the bottom and click submit. And that's an extra few mouse strokes if you don't have a scroll wheel. It can be especially tough on a laptop. But in this case, you can just click quick submit up here. And it does the same thing as the button down at the bottom. But it's just easier to get to. So that's the reason you'd use this quick submit button. But let's say she completed the survey. Now we'd go down here and we'd start asking her these questions. Is President Obama leading the United States in the right direction with initiatives such as Obamacare? And you'll get a yes, no, I really don't know. Probably more with Stabenow than Obama. He has a pretty high profile right now. And chances are you'll get a lot of no's because he doesn't have a very high approval rating right now. So then the next one is, do you approve or disapprove of U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow's performance in office? A lot of people will either disapprove or have never heard of her. Haven't really followed what she's been doing. So you get a lot of undecideds there. The next one is, do you consider yourself aligned with the views of the Tea Party movement? Again, you'll get a lot of undecideds. Do you consider yourself to be leaning Republican, Democrat, Independent, Other, or are you undecided? And this is one where I usually will read the first three or first four and then give them the option. You'll notice these gray ones are also on the list, but if you were to read the responses that they could give you, you wouldn't read no response. We had one person who on the phone call said, I don't want to talk to you because I'm a Democrat, and hung up. Well, that answered the survey, because we're trying to ID them with their party affiliation. So if they're a Democrat, you mark it as a Democrat, mark the survey as completed, and here you just mark no response on the rest of them, because they only answered one question. But in this case, she did complete the survey. So we're going to go ahead and change these back. And this is going to be an independent. Independents are quite coveted. So when they get in the system, they will start getting a lot of mail. Do you support the Second Amendment gun rights? Not everyone will know what the Second Amendment is, but they'll probably support it. Pro-life, pro-choice, pro-life. If you have any comments on here, if they say anything interesting like, yeah, I'd really like to get involved with the Republican Party, that's something that's good to write down, and we can, at least in Eaton County, we'll follow up on that kind of thing. So you can just write some notes in there, and this gets attached to their card in the system. So say an independent interested in Republican politics. And be thankful for spell check. Then you'll want to make sure you do read the disclaimer. This is a legal thing, so I don't really mess with legal. You just say, thank you for your time and input. This call was paid for by the Michigan Republican Party at www.migop.org and is not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. And that's really nice and easy. And then you can go ahead and click submit. It'll say right up here at the top, Lori Shannon's responses have been added to the database. Recorded responses for another unidentified voter below. So it will move you right on to the next voter as soon as you click that. Now here we've got two voters, Barbara Sebastian and Ralph Sebastian. And they live on 5 Point. So you'd call this number, and you can see down here it filled in, is Barbara Sebastian or Ralph Sebastian available? And then if Ralph was available first, you click him and say he completed the survey and said that he was a Democrat. So we'll do no response, no response, no response, and Democrat. and no response, and no response. And then you'd submit that, and then it comes up with Barbara. So if he said, but you can talk to my wife too, she's not available right now though, which probably wouldn't never happen. They're going to hang up on you if they're a Democrat. Out of all likelihood anyway. So if you were going to try to call Barbara back, which you probably wouldn't if her husband was a Democrat, but in this case, we're just going to mark her as not available right now, and that gets her put back into the system, and marks this phone number to call back later to talk to her. And then you can just hit that quick submit button, and it'll go ahead and mark her as failed to complete the survey because she wasn't available. And the database will be updated to call them later, the next time somebody's working on this precinct. We've got another double unidentified voter. So you can go through, it's really easy. Let's say Jessica wasn't available. Well, how about Gregory? Yep, maybe he was available. So we'll mark him as completed survey. You can actually use your tab key and your arrow keys to move through this survey, and it'll make it a little easier. So, no, we'll make this a good, strong Republican. No, disapprove, yes, do like the Tea Party, Republican, Second Amendment, pro-life, and then click submit. And it'll add it to the database and move you on to the next one. So it just loops through until you're tired and worn out, needs a pizza break or something, and it works pretty intuitively. It's a little rough trying to talk to multiple voters, and you might have to deviate a little bit in between the survey in that little pause I was talking about earlier, where you want to be polite. So make sure you're talking to people, and you'll probably have to put in a pause there and say, yeah, that's okay. But otherwise, we aren't supposed to modify this survey very much at all, because it was, again, okayed by the lawyer at State Party. So you'll want to make sure that you stick pretty close to the survey here. Okay, and when you're done, you'll want to make sure that you log out. So go ahead and you can scroll down to the bottom. You can actually click on Preferences, and that will take you to the Preferences, and you can change your precinct. We're just going to drop back into Bellevue Precinct 2, and that'll get us Lloyd Emmons back. But you'll want to scroll down to the bottom and click this little log out link here. It'll ask you, say you're currently logged in. Do you want to log out? And you just click log out. And that'll take you back where you can log in again. And what this does is every time you pull up a voter on your screen, it locks it. So no one else can call that voter for 24 hours. And that's just a little safety precaution so that we don't have 3 people trying to call one person at the same time. And it'll also let you all work on the same precinct. So if there's 10 people at once that are trying to get, for example, Bellevue Precinct 2 done in a week, you can just work through that, and you can get a goal there. So that's pretty much all that there is about the survey entry tool. There are a couple more things about the way that Eaton County's handling the voter identification project. We're having a bit of a contest, so everything that you do in the survey entry tool actually gets recorded with your username on it. So after a certain period of time, we'll actually take a look at that and see who's ahead, and we may put up a little bit of a leaderboard and have some healthy competition here. And if you have any questions about anything voter identification project from Eaton County, you can contact me. The email there is ecgotv@gmail.com, or webmaster@gotvtools.com. And if you're from another county and having issues with the website or any questions there whatsoever, please, do shoot me an email, or you can always call too. The phone number is 517-588-3030. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how you're using the survey tool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some phone calls getting made. So thank you for your volunteer effort, and we're going to go ahead and have a end to the screencast.